Welcome back. I wanted to show you quickly another option you have for an editor. And I mean, there are a ton of options for you to choose from of where you want to write your code. And I prefer Sublime Text, but I want to show you Visual Studio Code as well because between Sublime Text and Visual Studio Code, these two are probably the most used, most popular code editors for web developers. Now, the way you get Visual Studio Code is, well, you go to their website and just download whichever operating system you're on. In my case, it's a Mac. So I'll just download that. And once it's downloaded, I can just unzip it, open it up. From here, we can just open Visual Studio Code. And there we have it, nice and easy. Now, the reason a lot of people like Visual Studio Code is that it's free. Unlike Sublime Text that allows you to, well, still use it for free, but every once in a while you get an annoying pop-up to purchase the full subscription. Visual Studio Code actually has really, really nice plugins and tools to make developing better. Personally, I like Sublime Text just because it is nice and simple and clean. I find Visual Studio Code can get noisy, although you can change things around. But let me show you how I would set up Visual Studio Code. First, well, we can just create a new file. And let's create a new JavaScript file. If I save this, save it to desktop, and we'll call it script.js. One of the really neat things about VS Code, and let's make this a little bit bigger. If I create an object here, let's say object, and this will have name of Sally. If I go object dot, oops, that's not what I wanted. Object dot. You see that I get auto suggestions from VS Code. I didn't have to install any plugins, nothing at all, but it detects what this object has as a property, and it auto completes for us. And underneath the hood, it's using something called IntelliSense, and they give you a ton of suggestions when you're typing, as you can see here. For example, if I type in the window object, I see all the methods and properties that I can access, which is really, really nice, and people really like this. And if I make any mistakes in my code, you see that I get that underlined in red saying, hey, there's something wrong here. So that's really, really nice. And it has a few more options. It has a debug feature that is really nice. It also integrates with GitHub and source control. My favorite feature is we can actually open up the terminal in here. You see that I have my terminal right in my code editor, which is really, really nice. You don't have to switch between the screens like I do when I use Sublime Text and iTerm. Although I actually like that, some people prefer having everything in just one go. Now, if I was using VS Code, there's two plugins that I really recommend. And if I go to File over here, or let's go to Code, Preferences, and then do Extensions. There's a ton of extension here, just like Sublime Text. And one of my favorites that I like using with VS Code is Quokka. And I'll show you what it does in a second. I'm going to install this, and I've actually already installed it, so I don't have to click anything here. In your case, you might have to click Install. It'll install it for you. And once it's installed, I can do something fun. I can do Command-Shift-P, or if you're using Windows, it might be Control-Shift-P. And it's going to display the editor's command palette, which again works the same in Sublime Text. And if I type in Quokka here, you see the list of commands that I can use. And most likely in your case, you want to start a new JavaScript file. So if I do this, check out what happens now. If I create an object, let's say object, and I start typing, let's say name, you see that it's actually evaluating the script and giving me any error. So name is not defined. If I do name is Sally, all right, everything is good. And if I start typing things like Sally.hi, I'll say Sally is not defined, and it actually evaluates what we're writing, which is really, really neat. And I can just have Quokka evaluate what I'm currently writing, and look at that. I see that object has name Sally. Very, very cool. So that's a really, really fun plugin. Another one that I really like, and no, we don't need to save that. Another one that I really like, and probably the only other one that I would add, is the indenticator. And again, I have that already installed. The nice thing with the indenticator is, if you notice here, I have these lines. Let's have another object within an object. You see that these lines are being highlighted here, showing me where I am in the code block, which I find very useful. And then finally, just like with Sublime Text, you can change the theme that you have. So if you go to color theme, for example, you have a few default ones and a few others that you can just install. So I actually installed Night Owl, which is one of my favorites. You can see that you can download different themes and customize it to your liking. That's enough about VS Code. Everybody has their own favorite code editor. There's no right one for web development. You just pick the tool that you find yourself liking the most and you find you work the best with. Some people like a lot of plugins. Some people like the simplicity of Sublime Text. It's all up to you. Just customize it however you want, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what code editor you use. But if I had to recommend two, definitely Sublime Text or VS Code. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.